My name is Diana. I'm a Buffalo native, born and raised here. Currently not, but had been a Gateway Longview foster parent for about 8 years prior to my adoption of my two sons. I have always saw myself with children, but due to circumstances, I never had my own biological children. But I lived in this house, just me and my two cats, and I knew that I could make a difference and wanted to open up my home to make a difference for children. I started off as a big sister in the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. I thought that would be a good avenue to become involved in a young person's life. And so I did that for about a year, and then I wanted more connection. I wanted more, wanted to play a bigger role in a child's life. And that's when I made contact with Gateway Longview and began the MAP classes to become a foster parent. I was kind of open. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to adopt, but as I became more comfortable with fostering and saw the need that children needed to be adopted, I decided to go, into the adoption part as well. The beginning days were very challenging. He would act out, and it was kind of scary. But after he became comfortable being here, those behaviors began to subside, and we began to fall into a routine and begin our life together. One of the gifts, I felt like I wanted an older school age child because I work full time, and it was important, or it was helpful that he would be in school while I was at work. So that was one of the gifts. And then another gift was the relationship that I was able to develop with my permanency planner, I guess is the title, which was Catherine Jacobs. She was my introduction into foster care and that whole world, and she really had to walk me hand in hand through it. And we had some rough days where I just wanted to I can't do this. This is really, this is difficult. But she walked with me the whole way, and, we got through it. Yeah, I remember, I just want to share the story that, of course I had to take Brandon to doctor's appointments and stuff. And when I first started, I was always calling her saying, he has a doctor's appointment. And I was like, can you take him? And she was like, one time she took him, but every time I would say, can you take him? And she was like, no, that's what you're supposed to do. That's one of the ways that you will bond with him, is by being at these appointments, and this is a bonding time. So I really want to encourage you that you have to be, you have to take him to these things. And so I was like, oh, okay. And she was right, because, it helped us to bond with each other, just at those appointments, the counseling, the doctor's appointments and things like that, just going through the normal everyday routine of life. It really helped us to form a bond. Samarian, which is Brandon's biological brother, would come for respites. And so we we also began to develop a bond. And it's so funny, the difference between siblings, because Samarian was very like warm and, you know, accepting, and Brandon was just the opposite. He was very oppositional. He didn't want to bond. He kind of kept his distance. So spending time with Samarian was, you know, good, was great, you know, and I felt it was so important to keep the siblings together, you know, and to allow them to spend as much time as they could together. That I felt that was very important. And so, you know, he would come often. We would make the trip. He happened to be out in East Aurora. We would make the trip out to East Aurora to pick him up and take him back. And one day he said, "Miss Diana," he said, "can I stay with you?" And I was like, "Oh, Samarian, you'll be back next weekend, you know, or, you know, when our next visit." He was like, "No, can I live with you? Can I come and stay with you?" I mean, he was like, "I want to be with my brother." And I was like, "Oh, Samarian, oh, you know," he really caught me off guard. And every time he would come, he would say the same thing. He was like, "Can I stay? I just want to be with my brother. I just want to be with my brother." And at the time, you know, I was, you know, making that decision. I was, you know, the opportunity was presented because, of course, you want to keep siblings together. But I wasn't sure if I could handle two little boys, you know. And, you know, every time he would come, he would say the same thing. He was like, "I just want to be with my brother." And he broke me down. And I was like, absolutely. And, you know, that was scary. But everyone would tell me, having two is, you know, it's not that hard. You know, you already have one, so you're just kind of, you know, they would kind of be like a help to you, a help to one another. It's not like you have to focus so much attention on one, you know, because now they have somebody to play with, you know, that's their sibling, and, you know, it wouldn't be so hard. And to be perfectly honest with you, I feel like it was easier to have two than it was to have one. I really do. So, and there was a few years in between Brandon and Samarian. There was like maybe 2 years in between. So the activities that I put Brandon in, like Brandon played soccer and he took taekwondo. So when Samarian came, he just did the same activities. So it really worked out. Of course, I fell in love with them, you know, and I felt that being a foster parent was, for me, it was a calling, almost like becoming a teacher or a minister. I feel that certain people are called to certain things in life, and I really felt like that was a calling for me. I was called to be an adoptive parent. I was called to be a foster parent. Because, you know, it fulfilled me. It met a personal need for me, and it also met a huge need for these two young boys that needed a home, that needed stability, that needed love, you know, and I had a lot of love to give. And so, you know, that it was almost a no-brainer after that. You know, I couldn't imagine them not being with me after being with me for, you know, the years before adoption. You know, I had never, of course, been through an adoption process before, but like I said, you know, the Gateway staff, you know, they walked me through it. It was scary. I didn't know what to expect, you know, psychological evaluations and all this stuff that you have to go through. But they, you know, they walked me through it, and, you know, it wasn't as terrifying as I thought it was going to be. Actually, it was very enlightening because I learned a lot about myself going through the process, as well as learning about the boys and their background. hardest part, I think, was just the waiting. Like you said, you want it to be over, and it is sometimes can be a lengthy process. So I think that was the hardest part, and just wanting it to be done. Just okay, these are now my kids. You know what I mean? And wanting. I never forget, Brandon called me Miss Diana for years. For years. And I'm like, I used to always say to him, don't you want to call me something else? And he was like, no. And he was like, I said, well, you can call me TT or Nani or something else, but Miss Diana sounds like the babysitter. And he was like, no. So he continued to call me Miss Diana until, I would say, 2 weeks after his adoption. And I'll never forget the day he called me Mom for the first time. I thought I was going to explode. I was just so happy, and from that day forward, I was Mom. So I guess it had to settle in him, to where he was comfortable. And I used to always say, well, to Kat, why can't he call me Mom? You know what I mean? Why doesn't he call me Mom? And she was like, he will, just give him time. He has to be comfortable with that. And so I was like, okay. And he did. And of course, Samarian, because Brandon called me Mom, he came in the home calling me Mom, So yeah, I've been Mom ever since. I'll never forget, Brandon was adopted on December 8th of 2012, and Samarian was adopted May 1st of 2014. So, we had a big party, and, it was great. It was really great. I invited all of the Gateway workers who had helped me throughout this process, and we had a big dinner and, a celebration. The boys got dressed up, and these were my sons now. Yeah, it helped me to grow as an individual, as a mom. It was a very positive experience, and I always didn't understand a lot of the things that I needed to do. But, as the picture became more clear, I got a greater understanding, like I mentioned, about the appointments and, building trust, always learning more about different issues, going to the trainings was always something positive. And so, I had the best home finder and the best, permanency planner that I thought could have ever been, and we always were able to work through issues, because there are issues, you know what I mean? And so, but we were always able to work through them and come up with positive resolutions, just keeping in mind that it's about the kids, and so my experience with Gateway was amazing. It really was. It was a great experience. I would say go for it. If you have in your heart that you want to affect the lives of young people, young children, if you want to see resiliency, if you want to see healing, if you want to see growth, if you want to, experience, growth in your own life, growth in who you are as a person, try fostering, you know what I mean? The rewards far outweigh, the rewards are so huge, just watching, like I said before, watching, a child be resilient and grow and blossom and be what they were meant to be. You can't put a price on it. So if you're hesitant, just try it. Just, do respites, get your feet wet. That's what I did. I got my feet wet doing respites, and then I moved to, fostering, and then finally to adoption. And that worked for me. So I would suggest just, give it a try. The difference that you can make in a child's life is, there's nothing like it.